What kind of person stays with a narcissist? My friends keep asking me when I'm going to end it and that they wouldn't tolerate the things she puts me through. I feel
Mm,
pathetic for letting her mistreat me constantly. So
mm.
why can't I just leave? What kind of person stays in this sort of a relationship?
Oh, yeah. There can be a lot of shame that comes up when people ask what kind of person stays in a relationship like this. And I think it's because we assume there must be something wrong with the victim that makes them complicit in their own harm. But it is much more complicated than that. Anyone, anyone can be manipulated. Anyone can be tricked by a highly deceptive partner. Anyone can develop a trauma bond with an abuser. And while there are traits that increase the vulnerability or the risk that someone might become manipulated by an abuser, not all of those traits are bad. So let's talk about some traits that might make someone more vulnerable to narcissistic abuse. First, we have highly empathetic. You're able to understand the pain they're in. You're able to deeply wish that you can provide them some relief from their pain. This puts you at risk of neglecting or harming yourself for the sake of pleasing them, or for you to keep a softer image of them in your eyes because you just understand where their pain is coming from. You might be someone who sees the best in people. And so when someone is so hot and cold or up and down, you're able to hold on to the ups and good moments, and you believe that this is a reflection of who they really are. So if you're willing to continue giving them chances for them to be them best selves, you're just going to kind of stay through the abuse and the pain. But the good is not who they really are. You might believe that you can love someone into change, right? You so strongly believe in love and relationships that you hope if you just love them well enough, they'll get better. And this puts you in an endless pursuit of changing the intensity of how you love and accepting more and more painful displays of love just for the hope that they'll change. You might be conditioned to neglect yourself in favor of others. So you might come from a world where taking care of yourself is not as important as taking care of other people. So it feels very natural and normal to neglect yourself to prioritize their needs. You might come from environments where abuse and narcissism are normalized. You might have lived in different environments where this type of abuse was normal and tolerated, and so the current relationship feels normal and maybe even safe. You might have been taught that you must make your relationships work no matter what. And so you might come from a culture that tells you that you must make your relationship work, you must endure and persist and never give up on your partner. And there may even be social consequences or spiritual consequences if you were to leave your partner. You might have been taught that your worth is tied to being in a relationship. And so you might come from a world that tells you you are only important or valuable if you are in a relationship, that being partnered is your duty and you must never choose independence over connection without social consequences. You might believe you're personally responsible for other people. You may have been taught that you are responsible for other people and you are to blame for how they act, and it's your job to fix them or make them better. You're not allowed to give up on people. You may feel extreme emotional discomfort or loneliness when you're single. You might really struggle to be alone with yourself, and you may endure great pain and even symptoms of distress. So, being in a toxic relationship feels better than being alone. You may not believe that you deserve better. You may not even be aware that better exists. And so, you may not realize that what is happening to you is abusive. You may not believe you deserve a safe, loving partner, or you may not even know that a safe, loving partner is an option. And so, you stay because it feels like this is the only choice for you. You might feel disconnected and unmotivated to change your circumstances. You may struggle with your own mental health, with low mood, apathy, executive dysfunction, shame. And so it may be hard for you to put the effort in that's required to change the circumstances of your relationship. And you may be hopeless or so distracted by your own symptoms that you don't have the capacity to leave. You may be unable to leave for a ton of complicated reasons. There might be financial barriers, risk of homelessness or poverty. You may have kids or pets that you're afraid to leave alone with your partner. There might be a language or cultural barrier to leaving. You may be sick or unable to take care of yourself. Your partner may threaten you with credible harm or even death. And all of those scary things might not feel worth leaving. You may have developed a maladaptive attachment to the person. You've been with them for so long or through such an intense experience that you've become highly attached to them in an unhealthy way. You feel anxious when you're away from them. You may be dependent on them. You may have established codependence. And so you feel tied to them in a spiritual or emotional way that you don't know how to untie. And you may have developed a trauma bond. And finally, you may have a maladaptive hope for potential change. You may have a high level of positivity that keeps you hopeful, and this won't let you leave. You're afraid they'll get better and be better for the next person, despite how much work you put in for them. And so you don't leave because you hope that the future will be better than this. But none of these things work in a narcissistic relationship because a narcissist does not feel motivated to be a healthy partner. And so if you feel any shame about why can't I leave, it's likely because you have a combination of traits that put you at risk of making it hard to leave. And some of those traits are strengths. They're just being wasted and misapplied with someone who doesn't deserve them. And if you're wondering how attachment styles put us at risk of being stuck with a narcissistic partner, I did a podcast episode about attachment styles and some of the ways that that puts us at risk.
I have one comment about this. So that the question included the statement kind of like, what kind of person stays? And that's like very shame loaded. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but after you just basically broke down so many emotional, psychological, and practical and cultural like factors that can explain why someone stays. And I just want to say that I think hearing that was very helpful because it helps take away a lot of that shame. Like after hearing that, okay, it's all of these things. So I just want to comment that and thank you for breaking it
Yeah.
down so well.
And I think it's really important, just as a final comment, so many people that I work with who've been stuck in narcissistic relationships, they see themselves as like this like unprotected like prey that I have to change everything about myself to be safe from the next partner. And the reality is some of the things that got you stuck are things we don't want to get rid of. We don't want to get rid of the fact that you are empathetic and loving and you see the good in people and you're willing to give people chances. We don't want to change who you are. We want to be mindful of detecting whether or not we're in the presence of someone that is safe and deserving of that care. And I call that improved threat detection. Some partners are so deceptive that you will think they are healthy and safe for years, even decades, sometimes into a relationship. But threat detection is the moment I notice that this person is not safe, I give myself permission to leave them. That's a hard thing to put together, but that is much more effective than I need to change everything about myself because some of those things are good.
Yeah, and if you think about like, oh, I have to change everything about myself, into what?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if like, okay, I'm highly empathetic, all of a sudden, oh, I need to go, like, I don't want to be empathetic at all. And then it's like, then you wonder why you struggle to form healthy connections, but still you have that need for that attachment
Yes.
and connection. So, yeah.
Yes. There's nothing wrong with people who get stuck in these relationships. You are hurt and wounded. There is something wrong with the person hurting you. Once we get away, we figure out what traits do I keep safe? What traits do I maybe enhance or improve? But ultimately, we recognize that we are not complicit in what happens to us.